What is going on, guys? My name is Taylor Stuber, and here to break down two of my favorite NBA player props on Prizepicks.com. If you guys are new here, welcome. If you guys are a returning viewer, welcome back. If you haven't done so already, make sure that subscribe button, likes, and comments are also greatly appreciated. Had another profitable night yesterday, made it 3 nights in a row. Unfortunately, Jason Tatum fouled out with 3 minutes to go in a competitive game. You would have to imagine he would have scored at least one more point with him being the alpha on that team. Again, leading that team in usage by a landslide. Yeah, that's kind of disappointing because down the stretch of the game when they were fouling guys, that likely would have been Jason Tatum. He ends up with 29 points. We have the over 29.5 points. It is what it is. Can't complain all that much though, because we were profitable on the day. Some of the props that they ended up adding after I posted that video were pretty hysterical, like the Peyton Pritchard 15 fantasy score. The under was an absolute lock. If you look at the games that he was surpassing that number, he was shooting like 5 for 6 and getting prolonged stints. Last game, you know, he didn't make his first shot, so they brought him out, only played a handful of minutes, only comes up with like 4.2 fantasy points in the time given. So that under was very easy to hit. Ended up hitting that again in the second half. But yeah, if you guys want to join the Patreon for those kind of plays that are posted later in the day, you guys can join that. That is linked in the description down below. But let's just jump into two of my favorite plays today. So my favorite play on the day is going to be Karl Anthony Towns over 42 fantasy score. Now, I think this is entirely too low and very heavily biased. If you look at the games in the series, he's surpassed this number twice. He didn't get there in the other two games. Now, what happened in those two games? If we look at the context of it, look at a bit deeper than the box score. We look at game 1 against the Memphis Grizzlies. He plays 43 minutes, ends up clearing that 42 fantasy score very easily. And you have to remember, earlier on in Karl Anthony Towns' career, he was playing big minutes. Like, he was one of those guys that was up there leading the league in minutes per game, playing 38, 39 minutes. In game number 2, what do we see happens? He gets in severe foul trouble, only plays 28 minutes, and not only that, the game ended up blowing out as well. So his minutes got cut back severely. I had overs on him in this game, which was brutal because, you know, he was doing so well on a per minute basis, just could not keep his hands to himself. And then a repeat situation in game number 3 where he's dealing with foul trouble, only plays 33 minutes, which is 10 less minutes than he was in game 1 when he was not dealing with foul trouble. So he misses his fantasy score there. And then game number 4, Karl Anthony Towns avoids foul trouble like he did in game 1, got up to 42.5 minutes. So if we're thinking that he's playing 42 plus minutes as long as he can avoid foul trouble, he's a guy that averages 1.36 fantasy points per minute. This matchup is pretty solid, to be honest, against them, even with Steven Adams out of the rotation for the most part. I do think that Karl Anthony Towns has a pretty easy route to getting over 42 fantasy score here. I mean, if we think he gets 42 minutes, he would only need to average 1 fantasy point per minute, but he averages 1.36 fantasy points per minute on the year. So I absolutely love the Karl Anthony Towns over 42 fantasy score. The next play I want to talk about is going to be a big bounce back game for our guy Chris Paul, over 44 fantasy score. There is no Devin Booker anymore. On the year without Devin Booker, Chris Paul is averaging 1.26 fantasy points per minute. We've seen earlier in this series that in regulation he has played 40 minutes, so that is the upside. Only got to 35 minutes last time out, but that game ended up blowing out. And he just flat out was not playing very well, was getting locked down by Herbert Jones for a large majority of the time. But with how crafty Chris Paul is, you know, the reason that I have liked him so much in this series, I liked him last game too, was because he is so good at switching onto players and switching into matchups that he likes for him and his teammates. I think that them coming back to Phoenix, he is going to be out there with a full array of switches and stuff to get him there. And if he plays 40 minutes or even like 38, 39 minutes, I really like Chris Paul over 44 fantasy score. So that is the official play today. It's going to be Karl Anthony Towns over 42 fantasy score, pairing that with Chris Paul over 44 fantasy score. We saw just 2 games ago in the first game without Devin Booker, 56.8 fantasy score. I think we're going to see a big game out of him today. Hopefully this game can stay competitive. If we look at the games today, all of them between a 6 and a 7 point spread. So I do think that the largest likelihood of a game blowing out is the Miami Heat Miami Heat versus the Atlanta Hawks. If I were to choose anybody in this game, if this game were to be competitive, I love Jimmy Butler. I'm just scared of them blowing them out coming back home in Miami. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching this video. Best of luck tonight, and until next time, peace.